Things are a disaster over at Disney because right now we got some viewership numbers for the final episode of Ahsoka, and it's abysmal compared to the first episode, which was already pretty low. Right now, this article from Cosmic Book News talks about it. Ahsoka finale has half the audience of other Star Wars show. Samba TV reveals viewership numbers for the season finale. Now, before I really dive into this, I just want to point out that Samba TV is a third-party site, and they have their own methodology on how they get the viewership numbers, similar to how Disney and Lucasfilm has their methodology, Nielsen has their methodology. So you're going to get three different numbers if you look at these three sources. But that's not the important part right now. The important part is just the fact that in the first episode, Samba TV recorded that they had 1.2 million viewers, whereas in the last episode, it was 863,000 viewers. So using the same methodology, we saw that there was a 28% decline in viewership, which is pretty severe. Now, it's possible that Lucasfilm will come out and say like, well, no, these were our numbers for the last episode, because for the first one, they said it was 14 million people viewed it. So it's possible Disney and Lucasfilm will come out later on and say like, yeah, we got like, I don't know, 13 million viewers in the last episode, which means the decline is not quite as severe, or who knows, they might say, no, according to our methods, we got 15 million people, and it's like, okay, so you increase viewers, but of course that is Disney reporting their own stuff, so you would have to take with it a grain of salt. I mean, like right here, they said they had 14 million people viewed it in the first episode, whereas Samba TV said 1.2 million. Nielsen, I think they're around 8.9 million people viewed it on the first episode. So these third-party sites are going to be a little bit more, I would say, correct, whereas Disney would, they might have better data on it, but at the same time they have more of an incentive to give it a positive spin, so you have to kind of make with it what you will. But jumping back into this article, we get a further look into the ratings surrounding Ahsoka. As it is learned, the season finale has been watched by half the audience of other Star Wars show, including the Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now keep in mind, Obi-Wan Kenobi, according to Samba TV, had around 2.2 million viewers in the first episode, whereas Ahsoka, they have them at 1.2 million, which means it already started off at nearly half the audience as Obi-Wan, and then even then it had another significant drop between the first episode and the last episode. Already, Samba TV revealed that Ahsoka is tied with Andor as the least watched Star Wars show on Disney+, which is backed up by Nielsen's rating revealing a 50% drop. Now, these Nielsen ratings that are showing a 50% drop is showing between like the first and, I think it was the first and third week that had a 50% drop, not the first and last week. So we still haven't gotten the Nielsen numbers for this last episode of Ahsoka, but I expect those are going to come out within the next week or so. So once we see that, we can actually get a better idea like what the decrease in viewership was. Right now, the only metric to go by is Samba TV, and like I said, it's around a 28% decline, which is pretty bad for a Star Wars show. But I mean, I don't think anyone's going to try to spin this to say that it actually increased viewership. I mean, I don't even think Disney is going to try to make that claim. I mean, but of course, Disney might not actually put out their numbers. They have no obligation to. So if we don't see any numbers coming out from them, we can expect that to mean it's pretty much not good news, because if the news was pretty good, or if the decline wasn't nearly that bad, then they would want to flaunt that. But I mean, if they're not even going to do that, then it's pretty much telling it right now. But we already had some other news coming out just yesterday talking about the TV models for what they're doing over at Disney+. Now, this was in relation specifically to Daredevil and their Marvel project, but I think it's applicable to Star Wars as well, because what they've been doing in the past for at least a lot of these other franchises is more or less treating them like movies that they were just stretching out longer and putting it onto their Disney Plus platform, which I guess that's one method for actually shooting a show like this. But what they're trying to do is go back to the traditional TV model, because as it's been, they've been spending 150, 200 plus million dollars on these series, and then they look at it afterwards and decide like whether they actually like it, if they're going to try to fix it in post, do a bunch of reshoots and all that jazz to try to make it work. And that's really why it costs so much money for them to actually produce these shows. Instead, they're talking about trying to return to the traditional TV model, where they produce a pilot episode for cheap and then have the executives actually decide what they're going to do with it moving forward. Like, is that the way they're going? Is that like, is the show kind of what they want to do? Do they need to tweak it? Do they need to find a different writer because what they had for the pilot episode wasn't working? Instead of actually making everything and then deciding what they're going to do with it, they just make the one episode, which is the traditional TV model. as well as actually have dedicated showrunners instead of having just the studio executives kind of act as the showrunner. Like I said, this was for what they're going to be doing with the future Daredevil Born Again, where they actually fired the whole writing team on that, and I did a video about it yesterday. But yeah, they fired the writing team, fired the directors of it, and are more or less reshooting it after it's been like about halfway done already, and they're kind of going back from scratch to try to make it work, so to speak. And I'm thinking we're going to start seeing something similar happen with their Star Wars projects in the future, because what they've been doing just hasn't been working with them. And even though something like Ahsoka had decent scores amongst the hardcore fans of like Clone Wars and Rebels, it just didn't resonate with the regular Star Wars audience. And that's kind of the audience that they actually need to bring in. I mean, Disney didn't spend billions of dollars on IP just to have a niche category on a streaming platform that's losing money. What they need is that bring in those huge audience numbers that you got from, like, let's say The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi. And we haven't seen that from their Disney Plus shows. And if they're not going to do a major course correction, then I don't know what they're going to do with it in the future. But I mean, for the most part, it looks like they've killed Star Wars because of the way they've been running things. But at least that's what I think. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.